Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Circular Chat, curated by ICCE, which is a weekly program that invites experts and practitioners from industries, government, multilateral, and bilateral organizations and nonprofits to discuss how they are embedding circular practices and sustainability in their business models. We have hosted 4 seasons so far on topics like sustainable agriculture, fashion, home decor, EPR, rethinking supply chain, business models and communication, future of plastics, and in the fourth season, we discussed ESG. We started our fifth season last week, which emphasizes circularity in electrical and electronic equipment sector. In episode 1, we discussed the life cycle of electrical and electronic equipment with Mr. Anupam Kumar from Minimines, a company that is extracting value from the spent lithium-ion batteries. This season, ICCE has collaborated with NSR Cell, the incubation center for startups at IIM Bangalore. The chat would help consult the industry experts who will help prepare an action plan for implementing circular economy principles in the e-waste sector and expedite the focus on circular economy to ensure the transition from a linear to a circular economy in the EEE sector in India. The key focus includes the integration of principles in the design, manufacturing, consumption, and end-of-life management of EEE. The speaker for this episode on collection of waste from electrical and electronic equipment is Dr. Manish Kumar. He is the Director, Research and Development, Center for Environment and Energy Development, CEED, India. Dr. Manish leads the interdisciplinary research on ambient air quality, energy transition, and climate change issues in India and South Asia. He has been deeply instrumental in investigating sources of air pollution over the Indo-Gangetic Plain and understanding the contributions from the underlying value chain. He has more than 10 years of experience in environmental research over a wider setup, including government, industry, and academia. Dr. Kumar has completed his postdoctoral research on air pollution in India and the potential for air quality improvement using science and sustainability applications jointly with the Stockholm Resilience Center and the Stockholm University, Sweden. Dr. Kumar has also served as a visiting scientist at the Max Planck Institute for Chemistry, Germany. He has published more than 30 peer-reviewed articles in various national and international journals. Dr. Kumar serves as the editor and reviewer in several international peer-reviewed journals. Welcome and thanks, Dr. Manish, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Surabhi. Thank you so much for inviting me for a wonderful discussion, which we foresee as one of the most important environmental challenges not for India only, but for the entire globe.
Yeah. For the entire globe, definitely. So, Dr. Manish, I'm starting with the questions that we want to ask you, and we want your answers, your expertise to showcase that. You have been working in the waste management sector for some time now. So, what are the major challenges in the collection of sorted e-waste in India that you see?
So, Surabhi, the issue is because India is a fast developing country and we have been observing a lot of changes in technology with a very fast rate. And the point is, with the fast growth of these technologies are more or less highly dependent on electronic and electrical equipments. And that is why we see a new emerging giant. Like we have been observing other types of pollutants like air pollutants, water pollutants, and a lot of other types of pollution. But there is a new giant coming out of the technological advancement, and that is the e-waste. So basically, collectively, we call it e-waste, but there are a lot of different types of wastes which are included in different types of circuits or electronics or different types of electrical equipment. So forget about the management and other things. As of now, the first important challenge we have been experiencing is their proper collection. Even today, India is only able to collect only 33%, nearly 33% of its total generated e-waste per annum. So although there are well structured rules and different guidelines by the government of India, but what I see is like the rules and regulations and policies are well fit for manufacturers or producers or even for the large consumers. But what I see is the biggest gap or challenge is the collections from smaller consumers. For example, I mean, India is it's a big country with a lot of people using a lot of electronic devices, electrical devices. So collection from the bigger consumers is relatively better. The situation from smaller consumers is something which we need to worry. Similarly, because of this gap, ultimately the collection dependence of the common consumer or a smaller consumer, they are basically dependent on the informal sector, or we generally call it kabadi walas in our society. So there is a large dominance of informal sector in e-waste collection, and ultimately it leads to mishandling or not safe handling of those hazardous e-waste that need to be collected in a more and much safer way. Similarly, another challenge I see is the lack of opportunities to properly dump or collect or submit or donate or whatever mechanism that with the help of which smaller consumers can give away their e-waste. So still we believe that there are inadequate infrastructure facilities for decentralized collection of the e-waste. So these are some of the challenges I believe we need to take care of and we need to work on in near future.
Definitely, Dr. Manish. So, as you have suggested that the consumers is a bigger part, the main consumers, those who are small consumers, not the bigger ones, not the industries. Actually, for them, the EPR has come, but the consumers, which are, using these things in huge numbers here because of the population that India has. So, it's very difficult to get the collection from that sector.
Yeah.
So now, yeah. So, what role do you think the government plays in the collection of e-waste, and how can they ensure collection at masses?
Yeah, so as I said, I mean, government is the most important stakeholder in the entire process
Mm,
if we talk about the e-waste. And I mean, in any case of waste, but specifically because this is something which is emerging. We don't know a lot of things about e-waste and its hazard potential and many other technical and scientific aspects. So definitely government is the most important stakeholder. So if we talk about the government, so basically the central government is more of making new rules and guidelines, setting up of new guidelines, but it is the state government which is whose role is very crucial here, because they are on the
mm,
implementation side. So I think the best way is to manage this emerging problem, that state governments with utmost priority, they must set a kind of a mechanism within the state where that can be led by the Department of Industries or any aligned department which is working on these important issues related to e-waste. So they can simply designate a couple of industries or a group of various departments, may be led by the Department of Industry, that they can work on a roadmap to provide proper space or a proper mechanism, so that the e-waste can be collected properly in a decentralized way, in a much decentralized way, through rural areas or through smaller towns and cities, and simply one step ahead, they can also provide some facilities for its proper recycling. Similarly, it is also the responsibility of the state government, probably led by those departments looking after employment and skilling of the people. So they must mainstream the informal sector, because the problem is coming out, the majority of the problem is coming out from the informal sector by unsafe handling of e-waste. So it is very important to mainstream the informal sector, and they can do it by a number of ways. For example, sensitization of those kabadi walas, proper sensitization of the aligned government departments, for example, municipal corporations or nagar palikas, or whatever smaller administrative units are there in the state. Similarly, it is also very important to have kind of some upskilling programs for the laborers who are actually engaged in collection and dumping of e-waste. And definitely there must be a strong monitoring mechanism that can see how the developments are going on. So these are some points which are on the government side, but I firmly believe that it is the state government whose role is very important in this entire process.
Absolutely right. So, centralization of these kind of things, collection of any kind of waste, I think decentralization technique works better in these, because you'll have to jot down the smaller areas. You have to, have to have smaller goals to achieve first, and then it makes it big. So that's how, state governments should definitely first, take this challenge up and initiate something to do in this sector. And
Definitely.
you talked about the state government should play a major role here. We understand that definitely state governments should play a major role, but what role do you think private organizations can play in the collection of e-waste, and how can EPR ensure collections at a large scale?
Yeah, so Surabhi, the point is, whenever we talk about the private organization, I think we must keep this in mind, that we need to think or emphasize more on the business models, because ultimately the most important thing is making profits. And especially for these types of waste, when once it is not in use, so basically from both user perspective as well as from the organizations or the manufacturers or producers perspective, it is very important to develop a mechanism or a kind of business model which is a kind of win-win for both of them. So organizations can definitely, the private organizations can definitely play important roles, and some of the ideas could be the decentralized collection centers within the city or any area, rural area or whatever, through public private partnership model, because ultimately both parties need to be satisfied on monetary ground. Similarly, from private organizations point of view, it is also very important to rechannel the CSR funds which they have been using for other aspects, for example, for healthcare or for education. So they can use the similar aspects, similar domains they can work on, but they must think of rechannelizing the existing fund towards raising kind of awareness about e-waste, because awareness is something which is very important, as we have been experiencing here as far as e-waste is concerned. So these by these ways, and similarly, it is not only the responsibility of the government to have a kind of a partnership or sensitization of the informal sector. In fact, it is the responsibility of the manufacturers or the producers or the private organizations also to have some kind of partnerships with these kabadi walas or the informal sector to make them aware of the entire things. And ultimately, as I said, money is in the center, so there must be some kind of rewarding schemes. I mean, they must incentivize the things or provide some kind of discounts to consumers so that they can return the old electronics. Otherwise, we are Indians, we have a kind of connection with whatever we buy. So we keep on buying and dumping in our storerooms. So we need to incentivize the entire process so that even consumers will be compelled to return the old waste, electronic waste. So this is how, and similarly, EPR mechanism is a wonderful, well-structured mechanism, but they need some kind of innovation. For example, some introduction of some kind of financial initiatives in the form of buyback or reward schemes, as I mentioned. Similarly, at organization point of view, I think we must think about a scenario where we must have a kind of design, an option for designing of those electronics only which could be recycled. We should not emphasize on the production or manufacturing of those things which cannot be recycled later on after its use. So similarly, the EPR mechanism can be innovated in a way that they can be fruitful for both the organization and the consumers.
Sure, definitely. That's a very good point that you have raised just now, that right from the beginning, from the design phase, which we call design rethinking, the producers should produce such kind of products only which can be recycled or refurbished, or they have a value even after the use. So that's a very good point, and I'm sure this shall happen. But yeah, it's a long way that we see ahead of us to
Yes,
reach that level.
basically, we need to work on the business model in comparison to the
Hmm.
to see the problem as a environmental problem. We must see this as a business problem, and the private organizations or manufacturers must engage themselves with the supply chain, because ultimately the collection will come from the lowermost unit of the value chain. So there must be an integration with the supply chain as well. So this is one of the most important point which private organizations must think of.
Right. Supply chain stakeholders, all the stakeholders have to be involved, and the supply chain stakeholders are very important to get the things back, reverse logistics, and everything that works only when the supply chain management is in place. So, definitely. And what role do you think consumers play in managing e-waste? Currently, what is the situation? What do you think right now the consumers are playing? What kind of role here?
Uh, Surabhi, I mean, frankly speaking, I don't see a lot of scope from smaller consumers' point of view, because the
Hmm.
system is still evolving. So
Yeah.
for bulk consumers, it is fine. There are set rules, there are
Hmm.
set
Hmm.
guidelines, and they follow. In India, we have been experiencing that the rules are being followed properly. But unless
Hmm.
we have a very structured or decentralized system of collection of e-waste from smaller consumers, I think, I mean, there definitely there is a scope, but not now, as of now. So in that situation, instead of relying completely on the smaller consumers, we should try to involve the civil society organizations. They can play an important role here. They can help in
Hmm.
the sensitization of the community. They can definitely help in the sensitization of the government departments, and equally with the mechanism, different types of mechanisms, they can put equal pressure on the system as well. So instead, at the moment in 2023, I would say, instead of relying on the consumers, we should rely, or we should try to have some experiments with the civil society organizations that can lead the consumer aspect, and with the step by step systematic sensitization or awareness of the consumers, it will definitely be solved after a couple of years, maybe a decade, something like that. So these civil society can organizations can help in making some self-help groups at villages or smaller
Hmm.
towns, and with the help of those organized efforts from the consumers, then I think we can expect a fast growth in awareness and fast solution to this emerging problem.
Absolutely, Dr. Manish. I see, because consumers, even if there are few aware consumers, there is hardly any system where they can put their e-waste. They would find it difficult. They might just give it away to a scrap dealer who himself doesn't know what to do with it. So there has to be a complete system behind it, in which definitely civil societies can play a major role, definitely. And if a consumer wants to dispose of his phone in a responsible but safe manner, where is his data is not misused? How is this being done in India? There are few private companies that are doing e-waste recycling, and there is most of informal sector also. So how are we ensuring that the data is not misused? Because here we are talking about e-waste.
Yeah. So, because as you said, it is being, I mean, these are just some recent developments. So some private companies, probably in the southern part of India, like Hyderabad or in Bangalore, they have just started this kind of initiatives with definitely with the support of government of India. But I would say there must be some kind of awareness about some thumb rules while we are returning your electronic device, or when you are selling your electronic device. I mean, there are some common sense issues, like we must change the settings of our phone to the factory setting levels, or we need to erase all kind of data, no matter whether they are sensitive or not. So these are some awareness issues which can be inculcated in the community or the consumers through different mediums, either through advertisements or sensitization programs, or at any government levels on TVs, radios, newspapers, or social media, whatever the correct platform would be. But these initiatives have now started. So recently, Government of India has also started Mission E-Waste for the proper safe disposal of the electronic devices, like phones and laptops and chargers, something like that. So this will be evolved with time. It will definitely take time, but sensitization of the consumer here in this particular aspect, for this particular question, sensitization of the consumers and using some kind of thumb rules will definitely help.
Sure, definitely. And e-waste is growing in India at a rate of 10%. And major recycling of e-waste is carried out in the non-formal sector using primitive and hazardous methods. So there is no strategy to it. How do you see this changing in the coming years?
I mean, we should not say there is no strategy. I mean, there are definitely some strategies, but yeah, of course, the rate is kind of slow. The implementation is relatively slower as expected. But yeah, I mean, we definitely expect some kind of positive outcomes in coming years. We must give kind of a gestation period for those implementations program to appear in front of us. But at the same time, once the stakeholders are sensitized, be it government departments or industries or even community, we will slowly see some progress for sure. And as I said before, there must be an integration of the EPR system, the current EPR mechanism, with the value chains, because smaller units of value chains are the most effective way to properly collect the e-waste, and then accordingly on a centralized system they can be disposed or reused or recycled in some ways. But what I foresee that, see, we are developing, definitely we are developing new mechanisms to solve this problem, but at the same time See, India, or not only India, and then the entire world is on the verge of energy transition. So we are now thinking about switching from fossil fuel to cleaner energy sources, or we are trying to reduce the dependency on fossil fuels. So definitely there will be some new technologies, for example, solar panels, so battery storage systems, and many other types of e-waste that will be generated in coming decades. So we should not only think about the management of the current e-waste system, but we should also try to understand that what kind of new e-waste that will be generated after a couple of years. And we expect that there will be a huge sum of solar panel wastes that will be coming in the next few decades. We should also try plan from now only that how we will solve the problem of those kind of recycling issues of those solar panels and other e-waste. So this is also something which we need to think of, and I hope that there will be some positive outcomes.
Definitely, definitely. We are definitely hoping that India should also move towards net zero targets, and energy transition should happen in India as well. And Europe and other countries are anyways grappling with the issue of handling these, solar panels and wind turbines, because they are creating a lot of this kind of waste now. So we shall be prepared for the future, when solar panels are discarded or windmills are discarded, how to treat them actually. So that's a very good point that you made here. Thank you, Dr. Manish, for being present here. It was a very engaging and insightful session with you today. And I'm sure our audience has got some valuable takeaways from today's discussion. And I thank each one of the present audience on behalf of International Council for Circular Economy. The events that we host, either online or offline, our vision remains to inspire, innovate, and educate masses the nuances of circular economy for a sustainable tomorrow. To take the initiative further, please feel free to share the recording link with people that can benefit and learn something from the session. Now, we'll see you next week on Wednesday at the same time with a new expert sharing his expertise. Keep following our social media handles for the upcoming events. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at the given link in the chat box. Have a very good evening. Thanks a lot, Dr. Manish. Thanks a lot for being present here.
Thank you, Surabhiji. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah.